Warbles on a lot to YouTube. This is part 2 of the YouTube review of the ships that flew.
Contact with one. It's never proved whether I sank it or not. An attack on a German submarine in the bay. When you're young, you don't look upon it that way. It's a lot of fun, a lot of excitement for a young lad.
We sighted a submarine. We dropped dead charges. We assumed that we often attacked them.
You saw very little.
No.
And I've returned to Stilton Life as an electrical inspector for the State Electricity Commission. I went back to Melbourne. I'm a director of a couple of companies which keep me occupied.
Oh, I came back and settled down in the gasworks as a maintenance fitter.
But it was during the war that probably, like a number of other people who were flying then, we got a bit tired of all this killing, and we envisaged the use of aircraft for a rather better purpose of trying to bring people together instead of killing them. Well, of course, Bill Taylor has always been a legend in the flying game. He, like myself and the older flying boat pilots, I think he gained a love for flying boats, which he carried right through. Any of his major flights and his major successes were always done in a flying boat. He bought them himself, and he owned them, and he looked after them, and they were like pets to him.
Sir Gordon Taylor was the first man to fly across the Indian Ocean, first across the Central Pacific from Mexico to Australia, first to South America and back, navigator of the first aircraft to fly from Australia to North America.
The purpose of the flight is to survey this route across to South America for an airline that will follow, and to reach out in a gesture of friendship to the people across the other side of the Pacific. Thank you.
The longest, hardest and most demanding of his flights was the return journey from Australia to South America via Easter Island in 1951.
Easter Island was just an absolute dot, 3,000 miles from anywhere. Jack Percival, who was one of the crew on the aircraft, told me that he was getting a little worried himself. He was wondering when this dot would appear on the scene. And P.G. Taylor said to him, "Well, Jack, I think we'll probably see this in about 27 and a half minutes." Jack could hardly believe this, but right on the very dot, at 27 and a half minutes later, this tiny speck appeared on the horizon, much to the relief of all those on that frigate bird, flying bird. I think his greatest notoriety, you might say, was in that he was a magnificent navigator. I would say probably one of the best in the world ever. I think navigation to Bill Taylor was a religion.
The flight was a success, a hands across the Pacific gesture. Two great continents, Australia and South America, were joined by air.
I saw the cruising flying boat as a goodwill ship, another instance of the aircraft as a means of contact between people. And through that contact, the development of a thought which had come out of the air when I flew as a fighter pilot in the First World War. But this new freedom we'd found in the high air, the freedom of flight, should be applied to a better knowledge and relationship between people, instead of to kill them, as then was our function.
I first met P.G. Taylor, known to most after World War II, he had purchased 5 Catalina flying boats from the Royal Australian Air Force, which he intended operating firstly to Lord Howe Island and later on to the islands of the Pacific. Our first flight in Marinair also happened to be the last, and we took off one morning from Rose Bay and about 3 hours later landed at Lord Howe Island. We stayed there for 2 or 3 days and then flew back to Australia.
Well, of course, it wasn't that easy to establish yourself after the war. I did find a partner in Captain Chris Paulson, who was the proprietor of Heron Island. And he, like I, was determined to bring tourists into his island resort by flying boat as the most exciting and convenient way. I came to Sydney and went up to Rathmines after the war and bought 3 Catalina flying boats for £1,000 each.
One day, Stuart Middlemas, who I'd known in the war, asked me to go up to Rathmines, the Air Force base, and look at some Catalinas with him. After we looked at the cats, I noticed 5 Sunderland flying boats at their moorings out in the bay. I'd never been on board one of these aircraft, so I thought this was a good opportunity and asked someone to run me out. As soon as I stepped on board, I realized I was on a rather remarkable aeroplane. In fact, it wasn't an airplane, it was a ship that flew.
The interior was something to dream about. For real comfort, for spacious ease, and attractive and livable effect achieved with a kind of relaxing understatement, I've never seen an aircraft, even today, to equal it. Here was the bridge of a ship. No cramped little pigeon house where you have to get in with a shoehorn and out like a contortionist. When I sat in the port seat, the whole aeroplane seemed naturally to come under my control, through my hands on the wheel and my feet on the rudder pedals.
So when I got home, I said to my wife, somebody at Rathmines said I would buy a Sunderland. Well, she obviously wasn't listening, or she was thinking of something else, because she said, well, why don't you? Well, about 2 months later, to my horror and great consternation, I found I was the owner of 5 4-engine flying boats, 22 spare engines, to say nothing of the hangar full of spare parts.
I suppose the most exciting thing was the fact that the first revenue we earned was a phone call from now Sir Reginald Ansett, asking me if I could be chartered with my Catalina to take him on a survey of the Barrier Reef Islands. And away we went. We landed at Heron Island, to Lindeman Island, at Daydream Island, eventually to an island with a little shack on the beach called Hayman Island. We dropped anchor and he went ashore in a little dinghy that a fellow had rowed out to the flying boat. After about an hour's visitation to the island, he came back on board and said he had taken a 99-year lease on that island.
Sydney doesn't require an all at just 30 minutes home. Excellent fine. Thanks very much. Bye-bye. Boats and land planes are pretty much exactly the same. They're both aeroplanes in the air. It's only when you get the flying boat on the water that you get the quite radical differences. A land plane, of course,
course, he has 10,000 feet of black tar stretching out in front of him. All he does is opens the throttles and steers it down the white line. And at a pre-computed speed, the first officer says rotate, and he pulls back on the stick and he's in the air, and it's sort of by numbers from there on. But a flying boat on the water, it's subject to swell, you get chop created by winds. This tends to make your nose rise up and down, for instance, rather like a car on a corrugated road for a start. And the nose, of course, is rising and falling, and this adds another dimension to you in that you must control your nose attitude to keep it level by backwards and forwards movement of the stick. Also, a thing that we have that non-oil airplane are our great big floats dangling down on the outside to keep us level. And of course, if we allow one of these to go into the water, then we're going to have an immediate drag and a huge swing one way or the other, depending on which float goes in. So, another dimension with the flying boat, of course, is this lateral level. We must, of course, keep the ailerons level. So, if the left aileron goes down, well, we must do this with the control to lift it up. And vice versa, if the right wing goes down, we must lift it up by turning the ailerons that way. Now, another thing, of course, too, with a flying boat on the water, apart from watching out for shipping and ferries and hydrofoils and things, is the fact that the aircraft may swing because we've no brakes to keep it straight. At the same time, we've got to look out for all these people that may drift onto our path. We have no set speed that we may pull the aircraft off from, because if we do have to abort a takeoff, we've no brakes to stop us. So we've got to look for an area of a lot of clear water. These, I think, are the things that pose the problem, and I think they make it a little more satisfying and a little more demanding on an airline pilot. External, internal. Very good. Top seat and rudders. Very good. Control. Sim tab.
000.
0, 0.
Well,
Check.
shutter panel.
Open.
Gyro. Speed valve.
They're open.
Map indicator.
On.
Left.
That's are in.
Throttle.
Prime and set.
Mixture.
Idle cut off.
Pitch.
Fine. 4 lights.
Inverter.
Inverter still off.
And the aircraft clear.
Aircraft clear.
Back.
Okay, here endeth part 2 of the video review of the ships that flew. Back soon with a whole new video for you.